Good morning. The December the 7th, 2016 meeting of the Board of Investment is now called to order. In the interest of promoting the order and efficiencies of these hearings, persons who are disruptive to the hearing will be asked to leave the hearing room immediately. Meetings of the Board of Investments are open to the public for the duration of the meeting. The hearing room must be vacated at the conclusion of the meeting. Failure to comply may result in a charge of trespassing. Before we start, I'd like to welcome our new mayor, Catherine Pugh, to the Board of Estimates. She will have some remarks at the conclusion. Madam Deputy Controller, are there any corrections, additions, or deferrals on the agenda?
Good morning. For today's agenda, the board received a protest from Ms. Kim Trueheart for all items on the agenda. Ms. Trueheart's protest was reviewed but will not be heard by the board. For pages 76 to 74, items 4 and 5, a protest was received from Letkey Security Contractors, Inc. The board did review that protest, however, it will not be heard. That item will remain on the routine agenda. We have two items that are being deferred. Page 46 for 2 weeks, pages 72 to 73 for 2 weeks. I have the following abstentions to note. There are no abstentions for the Honorable Mayor Pugh. There are no abstentions for the Honorable President Young. The Honorable Comptroller Pratt will abstain on page 76 to 77, items 4 and 5. The items that will remain on the non-routine agenda are pages 64, 66, and 68. And as stated previously, pages 76 to 77, items 4 and 5 will be on the routine agenda. Also moving to the routine agenda are pages 69, 70, and 71. Mr. President, members of the board, those are the protests that were received, as well as the deferrals and the abstentions for today's meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. I would direct the board members' attention to the memorandum from our office dated December the 5th, 2016, identifying matters to be considered as routine agenda items together with any corrections and additions that have been noted by the Deputy Controller. I will entertain a motion to approve all of the items contained on the routine agenda.
I move the approval of all the items on the routine agenda.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. The motion carried. The routine agenda has been adopted. The first item on the non-routine agenda can be found on page 64, Department of Finance of the Fire Department Quadrennial Performance Audits. Will the parties please come forward?
Good morning, Mr. President, Madam Mayor, honorable members of the board. I'm Henry Raymond, Director of Finance. I'm joined with the Fire Department, Mr. Jim Fisher, the Fiscal Officer for the Fire Department. In accordance with AM Policy 404-5, quadrennial audit policy, the Department of Finance submits to the Board of Estimates the fire department's quad performance audit for fiscal years 2011, 2012, 2013, and 2014. The Board of Estimates is requested to note the performance audits. The performance audits reviewed several areas: permits and building plan renewals, emergency medical services billing, fire suppression and emergency response, payroll, and emergency medical services, continuing education. Recommendations were developed for each area. The department concurs with the findings and the recommendations, and the department has taken appropriate action to address those issues raised by the audits.
Are you going to do them individually?
Yes, ma'am.
And then you're going to go back and read the recommendations and findings?
Yes, so I'll do fire, and we'll do them in order.
Okay.
And with the findings and the recommendations.
So,
The mayor had a question.
yes, so I'm
Hold on,
noting,
Chief.
noting that we're up to the 214 audit,
Yes, yes, ma'am.
so we're that far behind on audits?
No, this was just based on the implementation date of the audits, the period selected, go through 14. Beginning in January, we'll pick up with 15, 16, and 17 as we move forward. As we move forward, the audits will be directed by the Department of Audits pursuant to the recent charter amendment.
Okay, thank
So
you.
audits actually go back to fiscal 10 and 11 for all of the agencies.
Okay.
I do.
So as it relates to the fire department's performance audit, there were essentially 5 areas for review. So the first area, permit and building plan renewals, revenue and cash collections. The finding, there were no specific processes in place to identify new businesses in existing buildings and ensure that those locations are inspected for compliance with the fire code. The recommendations were as follows: perform periodic review of the permit numbers for proper sequencing, determine how permits due for renewal are identified to ensure that inspection takes place and revenue is collected. Second finding, we noted there was no specific process in place to follow up after renewal notices have been sent and confirm whether all expired permits had been renewed. The recommendation, implement formal procedures to follow up on expired permits. Determine how it is ensured that fees charged are in accordance with the rates approved by the city. The next finding, of a total of 160 permits tested, we found one instance in May 2011 where a permit was issued and the applicant was charged a higher rate that was to take effect in September 2011 rather than the rate applicable at the time. The recommendation is automation of rates for permits. Additional recommendation, determine the process to ensure all fees collected are remitted to the city. Next finding, in our sample of 160 permits, we found 3 permits in fiscal 2011 where payment information was not recorded in COBOL, and therefore we were not able to confirm whether the payment was received. The recommendation, reconcile permits issued to the payments received. The next area that was reviewed is emergency medical service billings, percentage of fees collected. The finding, we also note the accounts receivable reports are not provided to finance for inclusion in the financial records. Recommendation, properly track and record accounts receivable for EMS. Additionally, determine how collection rates are monitored and evaluated. Determine if adherence to performance measures is monitored for revenue collection. The next metrics reviewed is fire suppression and emergency response, percentage of responses within 5 minutes. The findings, we were not able to agree EMS response times provided for April 2011 to the city stat report. Recommendation, develop a report from the CAD system to calculate and report response times. Moving to the next metric, payroll, time entry and compliance. The finding, we found 3 instances where the attendance per the station records did not agree with telestaff and E-time. The recommendation, implement process to ensure attendance records at the stations agree with ADP. The emergency medical services continuing education metric. The finding, we noted instances where records provided to us by the agency show that some certifications were not renewed on time. The recommendations related to this finding, automate the review and monitoring of recertifications, determine whether there is a process for corrective action when an individual is not in compliance with mandatory continuing education requirements. And that completes the summary of the recommendations and findings for the fire department.
Are there any questions? The audit has been noted.
Thank you. The next quadrennial agency audit is for the Department of General Services. I'm joined by the agency director, Mr. Steve Sharkey, and the agency fiscal officer, Mr. Burkay Attila. The quad audit, performance audit for the Department of General Services is for fiscal years 2011, 2012, 2013, and 2014. Again, the Board of Estimates is requested to note the performance audit. The performance audit reviewed several areas, including fuel consumption and inventory, preventative maintenance, contracted services, and building management. Recommendations were developed in each area. The department concurs with the findings and recommendations and is taking the appropriate steps to address the findings raised.
Are you going to read it?
Yes, ma'am.
Page 5.
Yeah, beginning on page 5 of the report, for fleet management, fuel consumption, and fuel inventory, the finding, although fuel consumption information is available for each vehicle, there is no specific process in place to monitor or review for unusual patterns, especially high consumption that could result from pilferage. The recommendation, determine how information is used for disposal reporting and inventory tracking. Additionally, ensure miles per gallon information is reported for each vehicle.
Can you go back? Can you read the
Yes.
entire finding for example?
Okay. For example, the fire department has over 370 vehicles, but we saw no evidence the fuel consumption is monitored, reported, or reviewed.
And in addition?
In addition, we found that although there are limits on the quantity of fuel per transaction and the number of transactions per day, there are no limits on the quantity of fuel assigned a specific vehicle or equipment every month or quarter. Yeah, moving to page 6.
Excuse me,
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. President.
Madam Mayor?
What about, so I understand the problem, and I understand the recommendation, but when you're doing these evaluations, do we get to know what the financial impact of these errors are? Because you're putting in corrective measures, am I correct?
That is correct. We're
Okay.
putting in
Is there a
place.
time frame for the corrective measures?
There are.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am. Yeah, there are timeframes for all of the measures for the corrective action, and that's standard throughout all of the audits. Not just Department of General Services, but for every agency.
Should they come back and report to the board that these recommendations have been implemented?
You're right.
Yes, we have no issue with that. I would probably suggest 6 to 9 months.
Can we make that 6 months?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. We don't want money going down the drain, right? Thank you.
All right.
Okay. So continuing with fleet management, fuel consumption, and fuel inventory on page 6, the recommendation was determine if there are controls in place over fuel inventories at filling stations and determine whether they conform with best practices. The next finding, our test confirmed that there is rigorous monitoring of fuel at each station. Fuel is measured each day and consumption and fuel receipts are reconciled on a daily basis.
That's good to know.
The recommendation, include physical inventory measurement on daily count sheets and perform third-party measurement of inventory.
You don't want to read the entire finding?
Okay. So as it relates to the recommendation, include physical inventory measurement on daily count sheets. In order to enhance controls over inventories, the inventory volume per ward at each station should be recorded on the daily count sheets and compared with the daily physical measurement. Consider including on the city stat report a comparison of the physical count compared to the perpetual inventory system, in addition to the inventory consumption comparisons. Third-party measurement of inventory. We recommend a process be put in place for fuel inventory to be measured and confirmed by either an outside party or the city staff independent of the fuel management staff. This third party would enhance the strength of the physical inventory control. This process could be implemented on a cycle basis.
Okay, can you go back to page 6 and include, for the minutes, I want the minutes to be accurate with the total finding.
Okay.
You stopped on a daily basis. It should be, we noted that on page 6.
Yes, I'm on page 6. Which paragraph?
Here. You stopped at
Oh,
basis.
okay.
Start with we noted.
Yeah, we noted that the daily inventory control sheets do not compare physical inventory of fuel as measured daily at each station with the ending inventory per the ward system. The ending inventory perpetual system is not included on the daily reconciled inventory control sheet. We noted that all fuel measurements are performed by the respective station personnel. There is no process for periodic inventory taken by a third party not responsible for custody or recording of fuel.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Moving to page 10, the next finding is for fleet management preventative maintenance. The finding of the 160 items selected for testing during the performance period, we found the following instances where equipment was overdue by more than 3 months. There's a matrix for fiscal 2011 through 2014 regarding the items tested, the instance of vehicles overdue by more than 3 months, and instances of equipment overdue by more than 3 months. The overdue vehicles were included in the biweekly city stat reports, but the overdue equipment was not. The agency informed us that equipment is excluded from city stat. The city stat reports for May and June 2012 were missing. The recommendation, report equipment overdue for preventative maintenance. We recommend that the agency put in place procedures for reporting equipment overdue for PM by more than 3 months. Determine how recurring incidents of noncompliance are corrected or resolved. We observed that in addition to including the overdue assets in the biweekly city stat report, emails are sent to the user departments. Furthermore, during an interview with the fire department, the responsible officer confirmed receiving reports of vehicles overdue for PM. Finding, there do not seem to be actions in place to incentivize or penalize the agencies to bring overdue vehicles or other assets for PM. Recommendation, implement penalties for overdue preventive maintenance. We recommend ensuring all overdue preventive maintenance is properly reported to agencies to ensure that they can schedule the PM as soon as possible. We also recommend implementing penalties to drivers and agencies that do not come in for PM. Consider canceling or eliminating use of fuel cards for vehicles that exceed PM maintenance set by a parameter. Moving to the next item. Page 17, facilities management building maintenance. The finding, for the 15 buildings selected for our test, we found the following instances where the buildings were occupied, but there were no lease agreements in place. On November 23rd, 2016, we performed site visits to 3 locations, 3939 Reisterstown Road, 1400 Federal Street, and 5225 York Road. We performed a walkthrough at each of the 3 locations, inquiring about and noting the tenants occupying the buildings, and then compared what we observed with the records provided to us by the agency. There were certain observations. Do you want that read into the record or just go to the recommendation?
You can go to the recommendation.
Okay, thank you. The recommendation, ensure leases are in place for all tenants. Ensure lease agreements are in place for all tenants occupying buildings managed by the agency. And finally, updated list of tenants. We recommend a process be implemented to ensure that the list of tenants in each of the 63 buildings managed by the agency is kept updated and complete. Finally, determine the process in place to ensure that occupied buildings under DGS are leased in accordance with city policy. The Department of Real Estate is the agency that identifies the city property for lease. Once a building is identified, a standard lease template is used to generate the terms of the lease with the other agency. That concludes the findings and recommendations for the Department of General Services.
The audit, any other questions? The audits have been noted. One more?
Thank you. See you soon.
Thank you.
And we have one final performance audit. This will be the law department.
Good morning. I'm Suzanne Sangre. I'm Senior Public Safety Counsel and Director of Affirmative Litigation. And welcome, Madam Mayor.
The Law Department Quad Performance Audit is for fiscal years 2011, 2012, 2013, and 2014. Board of Estimates is requested to note the performance audits. The performance audit reviewed several areas: collections, transactions, Minority and Women's Business Opportunity Office, and controversies. Recommendations were developed for each area. The department concurs with the findings and the recommendations and is taking appropriate steps to address the audit issues. And I'll begin in one moment.
12. Is it 12?
Yeah. Yep. So beginning on page 12, the first measure relates to the controversy service. Relevance of the performance measure, finding 1. The measure does not truly reflect the efficiency or the effectiveness of the division's collections efforts per se, because the division has no obligation to follow up and pursue agreements that default payment. Additionally, payment agreements collections is only one of several collection activities carried out by the division. Reporting solely on this activity underrepresents the efforts and contributions of this area of service. The recommendation: the department should use the data currently being collected to generate measures with enhanced performance reporting and analysis and broader representation of all of the collections activity. Recognizing that the most important services that the law department provides are intangible intellectual efforts, the auditor recommends that management review the current metrics and identify any additional services or business processes that could be meaningfully represented in the performance measurement system. We recommend that the department reach out to internal experts in either the Department of Finance or CityStat to create a performance measure that captures more of the activities of the collections division. Finding 2. A valid target for this measure cannot reasonably be established because such target and its achievement are beyond the department's control. Therefore, the performance measure target itself may not reasonably represent department performance. Recommendation 2, see recommendation 1, so it's a repeat. Finding 3, the collection activity is not supported by a specific system or application. The activity is maintained in Excel worksheets, which can cause inefficiency and human error. Although the department is making efforts to enhance business processes through automation, the collections activity is not specifically included in this initiative. I'll move to the recommendation.
Okay.
Increase the use of technology to support the collections activity. Additionally, update the collections division performance statistics summary to accurately reflect the activity. The auditor's format can be used as a starting point. Moving to the metric percent of bills reviewed on time. Reliability of the actual value, finding 4. The actual value reported in the budget in fiscal 2013 is higher than the actual value recalculated by the auditor. As shown in the table below, the percent of bills analyzed that were submitted 5 days in advance of the hearing date was approximately 81%, not 95% as reported in the budget. Can we move to the recommendation? Yeah. Recommendation 4, review the mechanism used to report the actual result of the performance measure, percent of bills reviewed on time, and adjust as necessary. Additionally, revise the process for reviewing the changes in target values from year to year based on actual performance results and desired improvement goal. Also consider renaming the performance measure to percent of bills submitted on time, parens 5 days prior, parens, for the scheduled public hearing to make it more specific. Validity of the target value, finding 5. Although the performance measure target established for fiscal 2012 through fiscal 2014 appears to reasonably represent past performance, the difference noted in finding 4 may indicate a need to revise the process used to set targets based on more accurate actual results. Recommendation 5. See recommendation 4. Finding 6. The bill review process is currently supported with a Word document that does not facilitate data analysis.
That does.
I apologize, that does. Recommendation 6, increase the use of technology to support the bill review activity. Consider incorporating the use of Excel to track dates and facilitate data summarization and reporting. Moving to page 19, finding 7, for the metric percentage of Public Information Act requests answered on time. The performance measure target established for fiscal 2013 and 14 does not reasonably represent past performance or the expectation that 100% of the PIAs are reviewed and submitted by the established due date. Recommendation: establish the target at 100% of PIAs reviewed and submitted by the established due date as expected. Moving to page 20. The metric application review process turnaround time in days. Finding 8, the actual performance measure values reported in the budget were inaccurate during the period evaluated. For example, in fiscal 2012, the auditor recalculated sample of actual number of calendar days to review the process applications reported in the budget was 30 days greater, parens 40% difference parens, than the number reported in the budget. See table below. Moving to page 21 for the recommendation. Develop a mechanism to report the actual performance measure results in an accurate manner. Finding 9, validity of the target value. The actual number of calendar days to review process applications, parens, average parens, was greater than the established target in all 4 fiscal years reviewed. Recommendation: we recommend the department establish a process for supporting and reviewing the changes in target values from year to year based on actual performance results. Additionally, develop targets that reasonably represent a goal for improving performance. Finding 10, the Access database currently used to support the application review process does not have sufficient fields to allow straightforward reporting. Consequently, in order to produce the data necessary to assess the review/turnaround time for new applications, the department has to follow a time-consuming and cumbersome process. Further, the process is manually intensive, which creates room for human error. The auditor also noted that the MBE/WBE applications are paper-based, not automated through an electronic form available for online completion. This creates inefficiency. Recommendation 10, increase the use of technology in processing MBE and WBE applications. At minimum, incorporate business data analytics by adding data fields to the database currently used to rack application review process milestones to facilitate review and performance reporting. Additionally, take measures to create an online application process for MBE, WBE certifications. Moving to the metric I'm sorry.
Madam Mayor?
Yeah. So we do everything by hand as it relates to MBE, WBE certification. Is that what you're telling us? You're making recommendations that they go to
Yeah.
a technology platform.
We have the director of the MBU, the Law Department Division, that runs that program, and he's automating it, digitizing it. Courtney Billups.
Courtney Billups, Chief of the Minority Women's Business and Opportunity Office.
Thank you.
Prior to this quadrennial audit, we've already taken steps to move forward to, first of all, we're digitizing our current database of certified firms. We did add fields to our database in terms of tracking, but more importantly, we're moving forward to an online certification process. More importantly, we will be eliminating the renewal process, which is probably the biggest inefficiency. We're going to use what is the state model in other jurisdictions. We will have a no change affidavit as opposed to the renewal process, which is about 2/3 of our applications are dedicated to renewals. It's completely inefficient, so we're already moving forward.
The other that I'd like to suggest to you is that if you're certified at the state level, do you have to go through the certification process all over again?
The city of Baltimore, by its code, has its own certification process, so we do not accept certification from any other jurisdictions, including the state of Maryland.
Okay. And how long is your technology platform, how long is that going to take for you to implement?
Well, there's a RFP. We already have proposals for compliance software in terms of tracking contracts. In terms of online certification, I'm not a subject matter expert in terms of IT, but in terms of an online platform for certification, that presumably can be done within 6 months. The compliance software that is currently under review apparently has the ability to add a module for online certification. So presumably that can be done with the compliance software that we're currently evaluating. So my assumption is within 6 months, we can not only have the compliance software, but we can also have online applications. But we will eliminate the renewal process, which is this office's biggest inefficiency, January 1.
Okay. Another question. In terms of where those listings of certified MBEs, WBEs, is that readily available?
Absolutely. We have an excellent database, and prime contractors have commented on the fact that we do have a database with certified firms, and when you are certified, you will go into that database, if not that same day, the next day. So you may not receive your certificate or your letter from the mayor, but you certainly will be a certified firm, and any prime contractor can verify that you're certified as an MB or WB with the city within 24 hours of your certification. Again, we process all applications within 30 days, and there's no other jurisdiction in the country that does that.
Okay. Will you send me a note in terms of the completion of your technology platform?
Absolutely.
Look forward to it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Continuing on page 23, the metric for percent of clients rating services good or excellent. The finding, validity of the target value. The performance measure target evaluated as percent of clients rating services good or excellent. However, all the questions in the survey inquire about service quality. Consequently, it is not clear which of the survey questions is used to report on this measure. The law department calculates an average of all the questions. Further, the target states rating good or excellent, but the actual survey uses a different rating scale. Parens strongly agree to disagree. Parens. Recommendation, develop and document a procedure that clearly defines and describes the methodology used to calculate the target value. Finding 12, while the measure aims at gathering opinions on level of service quality, and although the survey participants indicate the group that they mostly interact with, parens, collections, contracts, employment, corporate real estate, litigation, etc., parens, the survey results are not analyzed in such way that it allows a linkage between survey responses and specific law department areas. Recommendation, use data already being gathered to connect responses to individual law department groups being evaluated. Change the survey tool settings in which the survey results are compiled in a manner that allows leadership to link survey responses to the specific law department division or attorney that is subject to the survey participants' evaluation. Additionally, consider the cost benefit of changing the frequency of the survey from annual to continual, whereby the customer satisfaction survey is administered to clients upon conclusion of significant cases or projects. This would allow the department to correct issues in a more timely manner. Moving to page 26, the metric number of lawsuits handled and percent of payout of damages claimed. Finding 13, the law department's litigation defense services performance metric, amount of payouts to plaintiffs who sue the city, does not appropriately reflect effectiveness or efficiency. Although decreasing or maintaining the payout percent form year may seem like an appropriate goal, the law department has no control over how many lawsuits are filed against the city and its agencies, and it does not control the activities of city personnel or the condition of the city's infrastructure, which might incur liability.
That's something we need to
Keep going.
According to management, in the past, this measure gave the department insight into trends for liability, but the law department cannot adopt a goal to reduce payouts because the factors that determine how much is paid out are not within law department control. A very significant cause of increased exposure beyond law department control is modification of the laws by either the judiciary, or the legislative process. Both of these have occurred in recent years with enormous impact. Last year, the legislature doubled the limitation of liability of local governments from $200,000 to $400,000. In addition, courts have continuously eroded traditional defenses of local governments while recognizing novel theories of liability. Further, a recent change in Maryland law has undermined the usefulness of this measure, even as a tool indicating liability trends. The Maryland rules no longer require plaintiffs to plead a specific amount for damages, but only to specify whether they seek damages over $75,000. Otherwise, the department does not have the ability to summarize the dollars the city is exposed to in a simple and systematic or organized manner. The amounts actually paid out in settlement or court judgment is captured in the city's STARS system. STARS program. One key challenge is that there is no single system used to house all litigation cases and activity. During the audit review period, the department used STARS, a workers' compensation and risk management tool, to track lawsuits and claims. The system was not used for employment law claims, and the law enforcement support activity was tracked manually until fiscal year 2015. Currently, a pilot study is underway to adapt two information technology systems, PERIN, CLIO, and MS365 PERINs, to be used in all litigation, and the department anticipates that it will be funded to expand this pilot to cover all litigation. Recommendation: continue efforts to increase and expand the use of technology to all areas of litigation, thus creating more effective mechanisms to track activity in a centralized and systematic manner. Further, consider the development of performance measures that address the group's effectiveness or efficiency, such as a performance metric ratio that compares total legal staff personnel expense to the cost of outsourcing legal services to private counsel.
Very good.
And that concludes the findings and recommendations for the law department.
Okay, I have a question going back to page 15, because this got me a little puzzled. Where it says source, per the law leadership. It talks about the city council.
The footnote?
Yeah. Where it talks under the percent of bills and yeah. I want somebody to explain that to me. Because we have hearings.
First of all, can you read the footnote?
Yes.
The footnote says, per law leadership, some bills never receive a hearing date from City Council due to a number of valid reasons. There's no need to set a goal to review unheard bills, because at the end of the four-year electoral term, shouldn't be four-year electoral term, all bills introduced that do not pass will die. The incoming City Council then starts from beginning, introducing and hearing bills from the new members.
Okay.
So if there isn't going to be a hearing, and we're not requested to submit a report, we don't include that as part of our metric.
Okay.
Of how
I
many
misunderstood that.
reports we put
Okay.
in on time.
All right, thank you. Please note that the audit has been noted.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. There have been no more business before the board. The meeting will recess until bid opening at 12 noon. Thank you. Oh, I'm sorry. We have a comments by the mayor.
So on this first day of sitting here, I can tell you that it's cold. Very cold.
It is cold
And
up here.
And I can also say to you that our City Hall needs a lot of work. But it was really grateful to sit here with my colleagues and deliberate on some of these things. I want you all to know that we had a complete review of the agenda items. But also, we need to bring a cup of tea, and we need a heater. It's cold.
It is cold back here.
And I thank all the department heads that were here to explain their various issues before us. But I hope that you all heard that consistently throughout the various reports, we have a technology problem in the city. And we need to address our technology needs in order to become more effective and more efficient.
Agreed.
And I know that much of which was discussed this morning as it relates to the audits, and I was glad to be here for the audit discussion because, there's conversation prior to me becoming the mayor that the city wasn't doing audits. So we know that the city does do audits. And so I thank you for that. And we will continue to do audits, and we'll continue to look at how we bring some of these things inside because it would be more cost efficient. But we will work on developing a better technology platform so that all of our agencies can be effective. There's no excuse for this day and time for people not to be able to submit stuff online and to be able to get information online. So we'll work on that. Thank you all. I enjoyed my first meeting.
The meeting is adjourned. Shall bid open at 12 noon.
How you doing?
Good afternoon. The Board of Ethics is now in session for the receiving and opening of bids. There are no addenda today. First one. B50004809. Mechanical joint gate valves. A bid bond is not required. FM Shelton, Inc., $100,375.04. Sure. That was okay, great. $100,375.04. Thank you. I'm sure. Okay. Yeah, I'm checking out to see. JNS valve, we do not have a total. The total's not here. The individual items have been bid upon. Ferguson Enterprises doing business as Ferguson Waterworks, $266,682.67. This must be it. Bel Air Road Supply Company, Inc., $272,621.50. Thank you. Water Technology Resources, Inc., $258,665. DS Pipe and Steel Supply, LLC, $493,225.97. HD Supply Waterworks Limited, $323,640.96.
Refer these bids to the Bureau of Purchases for tabulation and report.
B50004585 911 Customer Premise Equipment System. This is a price opening. West Safety Solutions Corp., $5,525,623.40. Motorola Solutions, Inc., $5,137,306.69. Which tab is behind her?
Bid price sheet. Number 6.
Okay. I missed it the first time. Thank you. Thank you. Carousel Industries of North America, Inc. $5,117,364.18.
Refer these bids to the Bureau of Purchases for tabulation and report.
Okay. There being no further business, we are adjourned. Thank you so very much.
You too.